So I just experienced the most fascinating real-life manifestation of the Waffles and Pancakes discourse. For those of you who don't know what Waffles and Pancake discourse is, the term stems from one of the greatest tweets of all time, although now it is applicable not just to Twitter, but also to TikTok and apparently to my YouTube comment section. Because Twitter, the only place where well-articulated sentences still get misinterpreted. You can say, I like pancakes, and somebody will say, so you hate waffles? No, bitch, that's a whole new sentence. What the actual F are you talking about? So yesterday I published a compilation video on my YouTube. It's made up of all of the videos on my deconstructing playlist on this TikTok account. I mean, in those videos, if you're watching this here on TikTok, you can go look at my playlist. If you're watching this video on YouTube, I will link to the compilation video here. That whole series of videos was started because I made a video directed at one of my mutuals who's a very large creator who has obviously done a ton of work deconstructing from his childhood, but still holds beliefs that I am strongly opposed to. And other folks in my comments pointed out to me, like, why are you following this guy? And I thought this was a good opportunity to talk about very black and white thinking, very purity focused thinking, for lack of a better phrase, very cancel culture thinking that folks on the left are very prone to engaging in. If someone does not align perfectly with all of our values, we need to cut them out. I was talking about how harmful that is, how deconstruction is a long process, and that folks cannot speed up the timeline of doing the work of deconstructing, and that we, especially white folks, get very uncomfortable having relationships with folks who we don't think have arrived, who still hold problematic beliefs and have not gotten to the place where we are. And I was saying, well, this is indicative of, I think, a lot of online discourse. It's not good for community. It's not good for any kind of social justice movement. It's not good for our society. Puritanical, self-righteous, black and white thinking is obviously the reason for a tremendous amount of leftist infighting. It's also why we're kind of a joke and why the majority of folks can't stand us. We don't want to coalition build with liberals. We don't want to coalition build with other leftists and progressive folks unless they meet our standard of what we think is morally pure and good. And most people, especially in America, who are trying to learn better and do better, have a long road of deconstruction. I say that as somebody who has been going through that process for 20 years. And if we will only partner with and be in community with people who are perfectly deconstructed, we are going to cut out 99% of people. And I think most folks who demand that kind of perfection are the folks who still have a whole heck of a lot of deconstructing to do. They just don't realize it. So I'm asking in those videos, what does it look like to have community with people when we may have some real profound disagreements with some of the things they believe in, but we also have a lot of shared values and goals? What does it look like to love somebody, come alongside somebody who is doing the work, who is on the journey of deconstructing, but has not peeled back as many layers of the onion as we would like? And on TikTok, those videos were well received. There was really good conversation. Folks had really insightful things to say. And for the majority of my viewers on YouTube, the response was similar, but I did get a handful of comments that were just like peak Waffles and Pancakes discourse. And I think they're important to talk about because they prove the point I was trying to make in all of the videos on that playlist. So most commenters were like the one above. Deconstruction is a great but necessary source of suffering. I have cried more times in the last 4 years than in my entire life. I was raised evangelical, and then they go on to talk about how they started deconstructing in their 50s. But the comment below it is Waffles and Pancakes. So are you saying even though my evangelical parents treated me with disrespect my entire life and still see me as the black sheep because I don't believe and do exactly as they do, that I need to be tolerant of them and not cut them out of my life, even if their behavior has and is abusive? To which I replied, no, that's not even remotely what I'm saying. In fact, I have lots of content both here and on TikTok about creating healthy boundaries with toxic parents and people who are entrenched in harmful ideologies. I have never once advocated for people to stay in contact with abusers. Quite the opposite, actually. I'm really quite confused how you got this out of my video. I'm speaking specifically about having nuance when it comes to boundaries and community and coalition building and understanding with someone who is actively deconstructing and doing the good work of peeling back the layers, but may not be able to instantaneously peel back every layer at once, because that's not how we as people work. Right, and you can pause to read here. Most commenters saw that that's what I was talking about. But there were still some more folks who were pancaking this video. How do you have a relationship with a narcissist? No contact, gray rock, don't settle. Right, so I'm not asking folks to have relationships with narcissists. Right, this person says a personal relationship with someone who scapegoats you is different from a political relationship. Right, so this one person, Lisa Hansen, don't go hate on her, but she left a ton of comments on my video, including saying that I was shaming white people for saying that we as white people need to do the heavy lifting of coming alongside other white folks who are deconstructing instead of expecting people of color to do that work, and instead of ostracizing folks who are actively on the journey to learn to do better. Lisa says, except that she never really clearly stated anything about taking care of oneself. Lisa, I literally have over 100 videos on that subject. Literally 100 videos on my main about creating healthy boundaries and protecting yourself and your children from toxic relatives, about protecting your peace and keeping yourself safe. But that wasn't what this video was about, so it wasn't necessary for me to talk about it. She never clearly stated it is okay to cut people out who are bullies or abusive. That's not what this video was about. I'm just going to say, white people, when you are asked to be accountable for your behavior, when you are justly critiqued, that is not shaming and blaming you. I made a long reply to Lisa. You can pause here to read the whole thing, part 1, and the rest of it. Now, I'm not here to pick on Lisa in particular, but actually, those, 4 comments I think I got total, where folks were equating coming alongside people who are in the process of deconstruction, supporting them, even though they don't have perfect beliefs yet, even though they have not managed to deconstruct from everything that they experienced in the 18 years of indoctrination of their childhood, equating that with narcissistic parents or maggots who are enthusiastic, zealous supporters of the Cheeto and all of the hate that he spews and all of the really damaging, harmful, racist, misogynistic, homophobic, transphobic, poverty shaming nonsense that he wants to enact in this country. Folks who started from a place of deep indoctrination and are working to unlearn that and are somewhere along one of these many steps on their very long and convoluted journey, which will take years. Those folks who are doing the work of deconstruction. And we can see that. We can see the evidence of that in their changed behavior, their changed opinions, in the good work that they're doing. Those folks are not even remotely the same thing as a narcissistic parent or a zealous Trumper. Like, come on, y'all. Waffles and pancakes. And I think it is indicative of those of us on the left, especially white people, that we struggle to see nuance or even like blatant differences because we get so triggered by folks that we don't see as morally pure or as righteous as we are. And we as white folks, we don't want to do the labor and feel the discomfort of having relationships with people who we think have not arrived yet. We don't want to look contaminated by association, and we don't want to do the work of challenging people, supporting people, assisting people in the process of deconstruction. People who have already begun that journey and are in process. So it's much easier for us to just cut people out. That's one of the things I said in that video many times. The easy and lazy way that makes us feel really righteous is just to cut people out, rather than to call them in. And I know Imani Crutches and Spice, she's talked about this a lot, how somebody has to be in those spaces, and it should be the folks who have the most privilege. So I just want to encourage folks, right? I know that the internet is hard. I know that if we lean somewhat left, we can be extremely prone to very binary thinking. If we are partially through the deconstruction process, a little bit further than the other folks that we're judging, we can be very, very prone to black and white thinking because we haven't truly deconstructed all the way. We just don't realize that that kind of binary self-righteous thinking is a holdover from the ideology of our childhood, is still a tool of colonialism, religion, white supremacy, and definitely the patriarchy. And we just haven't unpacked that yet. That's why it's so appealing to cut people out rather than sit in discomfort and come alongside them. Because they remind us of where we were not very long ago. And we like to think that we've evolved beyond that. And we don't like to look at how we were. But we still have a lot of rigidity in our thinking. And that whittles the left down to this tiny, tiny group of people. People who are more deconstructed than us will be seen as tolerating problematic people. People who are less deconstructed won't pass our purity tests and will get called bigots and we'll cut them out. And all that's left is this little sliver in the middle. And that's not how we build community. It's not how we enact social change. It's not how our communities work in the real world. And it's not how we gather folks together around shared values to fight for a better world. So if you are prone to Waffles and Pancakes discourse and or very puritanical thinking, I would encourage you to sit with the question of how that kind of mentality not only hurts communities, but holds you back from your stated goals.